Van Jones. It's the Van Jones Show. I want to thank you for being here. Now look, on our show, we are trying to find a way to bring back some decency and civility and sanity to a country that honestly just seems to be losing all three. And that's why I am so glad we have here tonight the living embodiment of all three qualities. Meghan McCain is in the house tonight. We got Meghan McCain. You know, it's amazing to have her. You know, she's the daughter of a famous senator, but today she's actually a star in her own right. She's fighting every day for the best in the Republican Party. We're going to get her insights, which we desperately need. Later, we're also going to talk with NFL star Malcolm Jenkins of the Philadelphia Eagles, fresh from an upset victory in the Super Bowl. Sorry, not sorry for you Patriot fans, but we got Malcolm here. He's going to explain why he refuses to visit the Trump White House and what he is doing instead to truly make America great. Now, look, guys, it's been a crazy week. I understand that governing can be hard sometimes. Lots of things are hard sometimes. I got 2 boys in grade school. Homework can be hard sometimes. So, you know, when my older son struggles with Mandarin, I don't worry about it because Mandarin is a tough subject. But if at 13 my son couldn't get his ABCs right, I'd be worried. And that's why I'm so concerned about our government. We are messing up pre-kindergarten stuff. Approving a budget, keeping America's government open, passing a bill to let the Dreamers stay when the vast majority of Americans want the Dreamers to stay. That's baby stuff. That's ABC stuff. I mean, this week Congress was able to end the second shutdown of America's government in 3 weeks by passing a budget. But isn't passing budgets just Congress's job? That's what they're supposed to be doing. If we were struggling over climate crisis, the wealth gap, world peace, I'd understand. But we can barely do basic stuff anymore. And why is that? It's because it would take real courage and real character for our leaders to just reach across the aisle, form a stable bipartisan governing majority, and get stuff done. Instead, the leaders are doing the opposite. They're just stoking up the outrage and the anger in the country over and over again. For example, some of us had hoped that Trump's chief of staff, John Kelly, would bring some order to the chaos in the White House. Never mind. You know, under his leadership, you know, the White House keeps trying to link the Dreamers, who are overwhelmingly law-abiding, to a despicable street gang. How is that a strategy to bring people together and pass something? It doesn't make any sense, and it's worse than that. This week, Kelly himself is out there accusing Dreamers of being lazy and needing to get off their asses while he's covering up for an accused wife beater on his own staff, an accused wife beater. And then Trump, who never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity, heaped praise on the same accused wife beater but said nothing about the pain or the courage of the 2 former wives who are speaking out. Look, that's not hard to get right. I mean, you're flunking pre-kindergarten crisis control there. And this is the same week that Mr. America First, Donald Trump, said he wants to have a military parade in American streets because they do it in France. I mean, the hypocrisy is just everywhere. And it's not just Republicans. You know, the Democrats told us that shutdowns were terrible under Obama, but now they're mad that we don't have more shutdowns. The Republicans under Obama said that deficits were terrible. Now they just love them to death. You know, there's something wrong right now in the country. And what we need is a rebirth of courage, of character in the country. And there is no family that symbolizes those virtues more than the McCain family. For generation after generation, the McCains have emerged as leading patriots in their times. They stood up for their principles and been willing to pay a cost for doing so. So my next guest is the latest in a long line of extraordinarily committed Americans. Please welcome to the Van Jones Show, Meghan McCain.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're so happy to have you.
Yes. Look at all these photos.
I know.
Gosh. It's a little intimidating, all these photos.
Well, you know, we had so many to choose from. You and your family has just been out there just doing extraordinary stuff.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I haven't been on CNN in years.
Welcome back.
Years.
We
Thank
might lock the door.
you so much for
Welcome
having
back. Yeah, it's great. You know, I want to say to you, to your face, I've said it behind your back, I honestly don't know if the country deserves you.
Oh, God.
I feel, and I say that honestly because you are so rooted, you're a principled conservative. rooted in the best of the party, of your party, but you continue trying to reach out. You continue trying to make connections, and we just need a lot more of that. Just give her another round of applause for being that kind of
I really genuinely appreciate that, because I think a lot of us, I was listening to your intro, it's easy to get very cynical right now, and it's easy to get very jaded. I've certainly found myself going to places like that I didn't think I was really capable of in the past 2.5 years. I think cancer combined with the election, I find myself getting a lot more just cynical about our country, and hearing that, thank you very much. It means a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know, your family has been key to this country through worse times even than this. So we can't have you giving up. But you mentioned the cancer. And my mom is sick. I told the audience, last time, she's getting a little bit better, but she's still struggling. How's your dad?
He's doing really good, all things considered. I've been very open. He had sort of a bad bout at Christmas time. He was hospitalized in Walter Reed. He had ramifications from his chemotherapy. He had pneumonia, but he's made this really incredible comeback. And I was with him at Christmas time, and he was doing a lot of physical therapy, a lot. And God bless his physical therapists who help him, because they are endlessly patient. And, he's doing good. It's really scary. I mean, I feel guilty all the time for being here and for doing my job. And, as much as I want to say I get cynical and down, I mean, I get up in the morning, I prep, I get my hair and makeup done, put on a pretty dress, and talk. This is not the same thing as what my dad and so many millions of Americans are going through. And it's a weird thing to try and live your life and still maintain your job and your life while also having this completely omnipresent in everything you do. I have bonded with people I never thought I would have over this.
It's amazing, how human it is. You go to a hospital, and it doesn't matter you're rich or you're poor. That person in that bed is in their most fragile state, and people come together. And you don't just do that in hospital rooms. You do that, beyond that, and it's tough. I want to say that of all the great things your dad did, your dad has done so many amazing things. The thing that touched me the most was in the middle of that campaign where he was going up against President Obama, and he spoke up for the best in this country. And I just want you to show you this clip that everybody loves so much. I just want to show it one more time.
I can't trust Obama. I have read about him, and he's an Arab. He is not. No.
No, ma'am. He's a decent family man, citizen that I just happen to have disagreements with on fundamental issues, and that's what this campaign is all about. He's not. Thank you.
Yeah, so good. Thank you. Thank you. I can't go a day without someone bringing that up.
Yeah.
Every place I go, on the subway, at restaurants, I cannot go a day without someone bringing up this moment. And I was there when it happened. I remember it incredibly vividly, and thinking this is a moment that, he's really not going to give in to what certain advisors are telling him to. There were a lot of people really trying to get my dad to go with the Jeremiah Wright, you're a Muslim, you're not an American aspect of that, later Republican politics sort of turned into, and he refused. And he refused in that moment. And I can remember thinking that it was a morally amazing and beautiful moment, but that maybe there would be people in the Republican Party that would be quite angry.
Yeah. Well, where did that courage go? I mean, that is courage. I mean, you have the biggest prize ever right in your grasp, and you make a decision to say there's principles bigger than that I will not violate, even to grab the presidency. I don't see that courage in my party or your party. What do you think has happened?
I think it doesn't win elections anymore, in the saddest way I can say it. And I think about that moment and where we're at politically a lot. And I do think that if I could go back in time and my dad could do it all over again, and he would say, build the wall, whatever, President Obama's a Muslim, all the incendiary comments that have sort of come forth, it would not be worth it. I would still say don't do it, because being in the White House, and let me tell you something, I mean, my dad has glioblastoma multiforme stage 4, which I always want to say the full cancer name whenever I have the opportunity to. When you're having the kind of conversations my family's been having, I feel such a relief right now, and such a burden that is not on me, because I can't imagine what it's like being president, but giving that up, but doing it the way President Trump did it. I don't think that dealing with cancer and the place I'm at in my life and where my family's at, I think it would be I think it would be a burden, and I think it would be something you would have a hard time reconciling.
Well, yeah, you're lucky to be able to rely on John McCain as your dad to give you advice. You used to be on Fox, and now you're on The View.
Yeah,
it's
pretty crazy.
What role did your dad's advice play in getting you to make that decision?
So when I decided to leave Fox, he was really imploring me to take more risks and to take more chances, like going on shows like this, and to sort of get out of the echo chamber a little bit, because he does believe we're too insulated and we're too tribal. And I can remember when I got the phone call about The View, I was actually in a Mayo Clinic with him when he was getting a scan, and we were waiting for the results, and he said, the agent called me and he was like, The View's looking for you, and I was like, say no, I'm not interested. And he was like, why would you say no to something like that? Wow. To working with Whoopi Goldberg, to being the one Republican on this platform. And he keeps emphasizing carpe diem, take the moment, speak out to other sides. And I found myself, oh, sorry, I can talk forever, by the way. I'm sorry.
Are you guys happy to hear what she has to say? I'm happy to hear what she has to say.
I can literally talk and talk and talk.
But you know, just to play devil's advocate, though, did he give you bad advice? Because now you're on The View, and you know it looks sometimes like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I mean, and you are the only one that's there. I mean, how does it feel when you're in those really tough exchanges? And sometimes people are, you know, they're basically implying you're a racist, or implying, you know, sometimes the audience is mean. I mean, how do those exchanges feel for you?
Well, I mean, it's not pleasant when, you know, the audience that's the physical audience in there tends to be mostly liberal, but I don't regret anything, and it's a really huge privilege to be on this show. The women who co-host the show, especially Whoopi and Joy, have been doing it, Whoopi 11 years, Joy 20, and legends, and it's a privilege to be there every day. It is challenging every part of my profession that I know, because it's almost like trying to learn how to speak a new language, trying to speak to not just, I wouldn't even just call them liberals, it's like the most extreme liberals that I have ever met in my life, trying to sort of showcase and show my beliefs and express it in a concise way.
What do liberals get wrong? I mean, you're one of the few people, I mean, every day you're trying to bridge that gap. Give us some feedback. What are we missing? What are we screwing up? When you go back to your dressing room and you just want to put your head on your desk, like, what is it that liberals need to get better about in this whole situation we're in?
So I am first to say I wasn't a huge Trump supporter for all the obvious reasons, but I decided on election night that I was going to try and be as unemotional as possible in analyzing him and his presidency. I'm a political commentator, and I want to call balls and strikes in the way that I can, and I don't think I suffer from Trump derangement syndrome in the sense that I can separate the man from the White House. I've never been accused of being racist before in my entire life until recently, until President Trump became president. And I think the problem with that is, and I understand there's a lot of tensions in this country that are overheating in a way that we've never seen before, and we're at a historically incredibly turbulent moment, and I don't pretend to understand the experience of the minorities in this country. Right. But I will say that I have vivid memories of my father being called racist. I have memories of President Bush being called racist, of Mitt Romney, of Jeb Bush.
You think we're overdoing that particular charge? Now it's kind of almost like an antibiotic that we just use too much, and now it doesn't have any real effect sometimes.
I think it does a disservice to real racism. I think that for me, thank you. And I think that for me, I want to separate those things, and I don't want that to be thrown around the way that is. And I understand there's a lot of hurt and a lot of pain right now, but it hurts me when you're throwing out that I and basically the party I'm in and all the people I'm in are one giant entity, and everything is the same, and it's as simple as you're racist. And Jon Stewart actually has this really amazing quote that he said, and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, that he knows good people who are not scared of black people, they're not scared of brown people, they're scared of their insurance premiums going up. And that I do think there's a lot of gray zone with Trump supporters, and I would like both of us, myself included, because I'm certainly guilty of this as well, to stop throwing around horrible allegations and name calling, because I don't think it's
the blanket condemnations of both sides. Well, we're gonna come back and talk about that and a number of other things. When we come back, we're gonna get Meghan McCain's predictions for the future of the Republican Party, and that's next. Oh Lord,
duck and cover, man.
It's coming. See you when we get back.
Of Patty Hearst premieres tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
So welcome back to the Van Jones Show. I am here with my guest, Meghan McCain. Look, I want to talk with you about immigration. That's the next big fight. You know, you were saying when we left that, you know, you saw some areas where liberals could grow and learn. You know, there's been some real tough talk on the immigration front. Some of it's inflammatory, you know, some of it feels racist from the right. What do you think that conservatives are missing, or what do you think that conservatives could be learning in this moment? You know, because you emotionally and intellectually have to deal with liberals every day. What could you tell a conservative that they wouldn't know?
I think especially on DACA and Dreamers, the overwhelming majority is on the same page with this. So there's a lot of room for bipartisan agreement. I don't pretend to understand on both sides why we haven't made more movement there. I will say that my father was part of the Gang of Eight, and I can never remember more intensely the protesting and anger than when he was trying to pass that bill with the other 8 senators. And I remember there being signs outside his office saying Jose McCain and Lindsey Gomez, like obviously incredibly, you know, racist, incendiary, yes, rhetoric. And it is something that is very hardline and tribal in the Republican Party. I remember reading a quote by Ann Coulter where she said that President Trump could perform abortions in the White House as long as he kept this hard line on immigration. And for whatever reason, it's an issue that really gins up the base. And hard line, build the wall, you know, Mexicans are rapists and criminals.
But do you think that the average conservative understands, you know, when John Kelly, Chief of Staff, says the Dreamers are lazy and they should get off their asses? That is so painful and so offensive. Do you think that the conservatives get that at an emotional level?
I think we are going to have to at some point, because I do think a lot of things will change after the Trump era, or this at least going into midterms. And the face of America is changing in a lot of ways. I'm from a border state, whether you like it or not. And I think that this language, I never thought it would work to begin with, so I'm probably the wrong person to bring out my crystal ball going forward in 2020. But I do think there will be real-life ramifications in midterms and with whomever the next presidential nominee is. And yeah, I have always understood it's hurtful, but I work with a woman named Sunny Hostin, who's my co-host on The View, and she's Puerto Rican, and she came in the day that the S-hole comments were made by President Trump, and she was so upset. And it's not that I don't know people are upset, because obviously I live in the real world, but there's something about seeing this real emotion from a woman I respect so much, and her husband is Haitian and her children are Haitian, and hearing her story that she was worried that her son was going to go to school and be scapegoated and feel less than, and that is certainly something I didn't think would be happening in America.
One of the things I'm glad that you're on The View, and you know, when you know somebody, you know, I mean, I know a lot of conservatives. There's a lot of stuff I used to say about Republicans I would never say now, because I know how that lands for them. And I think that's really important. Also, these issues come up. You know, immigration, you almost have to have a PhD to understand it. I actually am trying to understand it, and I want to show you an explainer video that I made about one of the phrases that the president uses all the time.
Americans are dreamers too.
We have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
We want to get rid of chain migration.
The hotter the immigration debate gets, the more confusing the rhetoric gets. I want to make sure you understand some of these terms that are getting thrown around. For instance, chain migration.
Under the current broken system, a single immigrant can bring in virtually unlimited numbers of distant relatives.
That's just not true. Currently, U.S. citizens are allowed to sponsor only their spouses or fiancés, their children or parents, and their siblings. That's it. If you're a green card holder, you're allowed to sponsor only your spouse and your unmarried children just for permanent residence. Now, in theory, newly naturalized citizens could sponsor their family members, who could then sponsor their family members, who could then sponsor their family members, creating this long chain. But that scenario is highly unlikely, because the process is just not that easy. It takes years, sometimes even decades, for a single family member to get approved for a visa. So the term chain migration is not only misleading, it's considered highly insulting and derogatory to many immigrants. Good thing the official term for this is actually family reunification. Yeah, keeping families together. That doesn't sound quite as scary. You know, you can applaud my little video there. I worked hard on that. You know, the language the different sides use, or whatever, just makes everything so hard. You mentioned you being from a border state. Arizona.
Arizona, yeah.
Jeff Flake.
I know.
How do you feel? Talk to us about Jeff. Why is Jeff Flake quitting the Senate? He's so good.
He's intensely unpopular with Republicans, and I should say my father is intensely unpopular with Republicans. I think Jeff Flake is the least popular, and my father's the third least popular, because I think we are the party of Trump right now. And if you go against him, especially as vocally and intensely as Jeff Flake has, there are ramifications for the base, especially in Arizona. Go ahead.
Do you think that he should primary Donald Trump? Should Jeff Flake primary Donald Trump and get this conversation going at a national level?
I think it's a nice pipe dream in this room. I don't know how it works in Iowa and New Hampshire. I don't know if there's, as much as I want to believe that there's this room for more independent, more moderate Republicans, I just don't know if Trumpism is leaving anytime soon, and it's more than likely he will run for president again. And I would like to see it just from a debate standpoint, but I don't think there's any chance of him winning.
But I mean, you're a McCain. I mean, don't you think this on principle they should do? You sound almost like kind of resigned a little bit about the party.
Because I know what the party is. I'm not, it's Trumpism right now. Have no doubt about it. Trumpism has really taken over, and it's been a difficult thing for me to come to terms with.
So then do you see why sometimes people do throw this lump category against all the Republicans? Well, you're all this negative thing if the political force of Trumpism has so much momentum.
I do understand it, but I also think there's nuance in it, because a lot of people voted for President Trump because they were so disillusioned with Hillary Clinton, or because they were more worried about their economy than the job, and they have let a lot go.
I got another question for you. One of the things your dad got criticized for was picking Sarah Palin.
I totally forgot about that.
But maybe he was ahead of his time in some ways. Isn't this a party not really just of Donald Trump, but isn't this really the party of Sarah Palin? And if she had, she would have run now, someone like that run now, how well do you think a Sarah Palin would do in the modern Republican Party?
I still think President Trump is lightning in a bottle. I don't think he's going to be emulated very easily. And the billionaires who are, Mark Cuban and such, who are talking about running for president, I don't think it's as easy. I think it's a very specific man in a very specific moment. I think the question of Sarah Palin, because I've heard it argued to me before that she was sort of like the first opening of the populist movement within the Republican Party. I'm mixed on it, because part of me thinks, yes, that could be true. The other part of me thinks that it was just the wave where the party was going. I don't know. I just wish there was more room in the Republican Party for different, perspectives and different leaders. But I've thought that since 2009. So this isn't something new. It just seems to be particularly insular right now.
Tell me about your relationship with Joe Biden.
Oh my gosh, if he runs for president, I'm screwed in every way.
Why do you love Joe Biden?
Well, he's been friends with my father for like 30-something years, and his son has had glioblastoma multiforme like my father has, and there's something about him that I think he's experienced so much pain and trauma in his life that he just understands pain and trauma in a way that I don't think most people do. And he has become, I was always friendly with him in the sense that you're friendly when you see someone socially who's friends with your parents. But in the past 6 months, he's really become someone I have turn to when I feel like the world is falling in. And he is the former Vice President of the United States of America, and the fact that he makes time for that and cares and says the kind of wonderful things that he said on The View, which I didn't expect to cry and I ended up doing. He's a very special man. I disagree with him 75% politically, but he's there's a level of decency and character that reminds me of my dad, and I don't know if he runs for president. I don't know what I want to do. I might have to get out of business, because I don't think I could bring myself to say anything negative about him. I mean it. It'd be too hard.
Well, you said something that your dad was the third least popular or so unpopular among Republicans. And I just want to say something to you in closing. This country has a way of recognizing greatness, not in the moment, but in time. And you are part of the greatest families. John McCain is one of the greatest Americans. We thank you for your service and your commitment.
Thank you, and I'm so proud. Thank you so much.
All right, Meghan McCain, thank you for being here. Up next, we got Super Bowl champ Malcolm Jenkins, and I'm getting in the van. I'm going to Houston. That city was ravaged by Hurricane Harvey. Now they're dealing with a political storm. I'm going to take you there when we come back.